Hey everybody, Dan here with Pain Free You. Today was a hat day, so instead of showing you the hat head, I'm going to keep the hat on. So, today's topic is going to be about anxiety and kind of my take on it. All right? And we'll get to it in a second. I'm going to take a couple of breaths. Breathe in the peace. Exhale the noise. I started shooting a video outside, and about halfway through it, the neighbor started with his leaf blower. And I kind of lost my cool, and the video topic was going to be chill out, and I didn't stay chill. So I had to scrap that video and wait till later when he stopped making noise. But it is what it is. So breathe in the calm. Exhale the grr at him. So, anxiety. You know, there's a couple of schools of thought on this. I will say, I'm not a deep anxiety expert. I am not a therapist. I am not a doctor. I am not any deep expert. And I've been very blessed to not suffer a great deal of anxiety throughout my life. However, I've certainly witnessed a ton of it. In my family, my father, panic attacks with him. Mom has a lot of anxiety. And then I've also witnessed it a lot. I mean, as a coach, I speak to people all the time. You know, speaking to 40 to 50 people a month, different people. And I get to witness a lot of anxiety. So this is my take on it, for what it's worth. I think anxiety can create somewhat of a loop, right? Because some of anxiety is our anxious thinking, but yet there's a physical component to it as well. So let's talk about the physical component, because sometimes you may just find yourself with that jittery, anxious, maybe the heart's fluttering a little bit, that anxious feeling. And in some cases, many people wake up with that. I see, Dan, I didn't even have a time to think about anything. And all of a sudden I'm like, get that doom and gloom, anxious, jittery, heart fluttering type of feeling. What's going on with that? You can't tell me I'm thinking my way into that anxiety. And they're right, they're not. Sometimes we can think our way into the anxiety with our anxious, fearful thinking and taking those fearful, catastrophic thoughts seriously. We can also create that heart palpitation, anxious, doom and gloom feeling. But let's talk about the physical sensation first, right? My understanding of this, from talking to so many people and doing some research on it, is that the physical sensation we feel, called anxiety, in my interpretation, is what it feels like when your body is flooded with those stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol. And so, if you wake up with that feeling, my interpretation is that the subconscious starts to kind of come out of that deep sleep first, and the subconscious brain starts to go, here we go again. And it could be that the subconscious is kind of what kicks on that fight or flight. The adrenaline, cortisol starts to go. By the time you become consciously awake, you're already feeling that physical sensation in your body. And again, that physical sensation in your body can come about in many circumstances. You know, I think anxiety can have a positive impact if you are getting ready to put on a speech in front of a group of coworkers, or do some public speaking, or if you are in theater and you have to present or perform your role. A lot of people have anxiety, performance anxiety, before those things. And in the case of like public speaking, that bit of anxiety and the adrenaline, the cortisol, can kind of get you amped up, and in some cases can work out well, because that increased heart rate, blood pressure, creates more oxygenated blood, which may, flood your brain with more oxygenated blood, which may help you speak better or perform better in the theater or whatever. So anxiety is not always a bad thing, unless you perceive it that way, right? Because many people will say, Dan, I feel anxious in the morning, and the only thing that'll settle it down is taking a pill, Xanax or something of the like. And I'm not a doctor, so I can't recommend for or against pills. But I will tell you that many people will give themselves anxiety attacks trying to get rid of the anxiety. So they feel that anxious feeling maybe first thing in the morning or sometime during the day, and then they judge that to be a really, really big problem. And then they say, I got to get rid of this. This is awful. I've got this. And in some cases, people have been diagnosed with GAD, general anxiety disorder, years ago, panic disorders. And these labels kind of stick with us. And now all of a sudden, every time they feel that sensation in their body, they say, darn it, here it is again. I got to figure out how to get rid of this. And all that resistance and stress and anxiety about the anxiety, what do you think that does to the fight or flight and those stress hormones? Just keeps it flowing, right? So, I also believe that we can think our way into this fight or flight response, right? We all have negative thoughts. We all think stuff that is not particularly helpful, and in many cases is not even true, but it can fire off that fight or flight response, the adrenaline, the cortisol, and we feel that anxious feeling. And what does that do? It kind of loops around and starts to add more anxious, fearful, catastrophic thinking. And then we get caught in that, the physical sensation thinking process, physical thinking. And as far as I'm concerned, again, not scientific, this is just Dan's take, a really good approach to anxiety is, I'm feeling anxious. Am I truly in danger? Is there a threat? And what can I do to dial it down instead of ramp it up, right? And so that gets into many of the things I talk about all the time. Calming down your thinking. Don't believe the negative thoughts. Don't take your negative thoughts so seriously. Breathe. Settle your body down. If you're anxious, typically what's the body posture? Right? Especially when we're afraid of the anxiety. So relax the muscles and breathe. Soothe. Don't take your thinking so seriously. Remind yourself. Reassure yourself. I'm actually okay. I'm not in danger. I'm in my house. It's quiet. The roof is not caving in. There's no tornado. There's no craziness happening. I'm actually safe. And so, a number of people ask me, well, what do I do when I wake up with it? I didn't even think about anything, so you can't blame my thinking. I'm not blaming anything on anything or saying anybody's doing anything wrong. This is just where we end up. But if you wake up with that feeling, first of all, don't panic. Just say, it's an anxious day. So what? So that sounds a lot like indifference, doesn't it? So can indifference towards that anxiety feeling help it dissipate? I think absolutely. Okay, so it's an anxious day. Big deal. And know that if you don't react to it and freak out about the anxious feeling and the anxiety, you're going to have fewer of those catastrophic anxious thoughts, which kind of fuels that loop and gets you stuck in it. So, indifference. Okay, I woke up feeling anxious today. Big deal. Been doing that for much of my life, right? It's never been dangerous once. It won't be today. I'll be fine. And then shift your attention back to life. What do I need to do? Get up. Do something productive. Do something useful. Take a shower. Cook breakfast. Whatever you got to do. Get up and start doing it with as little care towards this feeling of anxiety in there. And not through personal experience, but through talking to probably thousands of people over the years, the feedback is that when they do that, that jittery, anxious, doom and gloom feeling kind of starts to settle down. Because if you're not feeding the anxiety and you're not fueling it with the catastrophic, oh no, I've got anxiety, I'm feeling that anxious feeling, if you're not fueling that, then you're going to allow the adrenaline and cortisol to settle down. If you are fueling it by freaking out over the anxiety, you can literally, create more anxiety because you've got anxiety, and you view anxiety as a huge problem that you need to get rid of because you hate it. And I'm not saying anxiety feels good. I don't suffer from it on a chronic basis, but I have certainly felt anxious on many occasions. And when you kind of take you can check in on your emotions. What's going on? What's going on right now emotionally? What happened yesterday? What's coming up tomorrow? What's coming up today? Maybe there are some things you're anxious about. A difficult conversation, a stressful project at work, whatever it may be. Check in. What's going on? And then again, I know you guys hate this word, indifference, but it's super, super powerful. And as I always say about the pain, which is, don't freak out. Nobody ever got better by freaking out. Nobody ever got rid of their anxiety by freaking out about their anxiety. It's all the same. Is anxiety TMS? Some people say it is a TMS symptom. It's really tough to say. So many people are like, well, is this TMS? Is that TMS? And everybody's like, yes, everything's TMS. I don't know. I don't think we necessarily need to define if something qualifies as TMS or not. TMS in the classic sense is kind of like the chronic physical pain caused by the brain. But yes, anxiety, that adrenaline, cortisol can happen because of emotional stimulus. Right? So is it TMS? Yeah, too much stress, too much thinking, too much fear. I guess lots of things can be qualified as TMS, but don't look to define it so much. Just know that if you're feeling that anxious feeling in your body, a good response is calm, reassurance, soothing. It's not dangerous. I know it doesn't feel great, but I'm okay. What's going on? Shift your attention maybe to your emotions. And once you check in on your emotions and feel what's going on, get back to living your day. Shift your focus away from the perceived problem back to living your day. That doesn't mean you ignore it. It doesn't mean you are, suppressing or repressing your emotions. No, you heard me. I said the first thing you do is kind of check in. What's going on? What's going on emotionally? Reassure yourself. I am safe. Those are just some emotions, and maybe there's something uncomfortable that's coming up. But you see how this all kind of works? Indifference towards the pain is a very powerful tool to teach the brain that there's not a big problem. Indifference towards anxiety is also the same thing. And so, the less you perceive pain or anxiety or other symptoms, whether it be stomach, gastric distress, autoimmune type of stuff, the less of a problem you perceive those things to be, and the more calmly and reassuringly you respond to them, the less you're going to kick off the fight or flight, which essentially means you're not sounding the danger alarm nearly as often, and that's what it takes to teach the brain that you're actually okay. If you want to calm down the brain and the nervous system, actually being calm in the face of some less than ideal sensations in our body and in our thinking is an ideal way to go. Because you can't decide angrily in a freaked out kind of a way to settle down the nervous system and the brain. You just can't yell at your brain and say, calm down. It just doesn't work, right? You got to soothe it down. So, what do you guys think? Anxiety. Don't make it out to be this huge problem to solve. Just make it another sensation in your body and another set of anxious thoughts that you don't have to take serious. Be indifferent to the whole ball of wax. If somebody's given you the diagnosis, general anxiety disorder, please throw throw that in the trash. It just means you've had a little bit of challenges throughout your life. Those medical labels, psychological labels, I don't think they do anything other than say you're broken. And what happens when you feel broken? You wake up with anxiety and you go, oh my God, I'm broken. I got to fix this. You see how that's not helpful? So for anybody who is dealing with these thoughts, anxious thoughts, and anxious sensations in their body, I'm going to encourage you. Soothe. Don't stress about it, right? Breathe. Relax your body. Be indifferent. If you can't be indifferent, at least don't freak out. Reassure yourself you're safe. Check in with your emotions, right? This stuff sounds really familiar, doesn't it? Same type of approach that I recommend for pain. So, love you guys and gals. I'm going to wrap this one up, and we will see you tomorrow.